Welcome to the Odd Ones Out podcast. If you ever feel like you're on the outside looking in, you are not alone. Let's challenge our limiting beliefs and embrace who we truly are. Hello, and welcome to the Odd Ones Out podcast. You are joining Maz and Becky as we delve into driving behaviours that hold us back from being our true selves. And now, I want to just put a caveat on quickly, especially if you've been listening to previous episodes. Thank you so much. When we talk about these driving behaviours, and obviously they're in the realm of kind of negativity, they're holding us back ultimately. Yeah. These are not the sum total of our personalities. I don't know why I need to be able to say this. This is us trying to be everything that we can be. You know, we're very proud of ourselves and each other for all of our amazing qualities that we have. And I will say that with all sincerity, they are amazing. But even when we feel that life is okay, that we should be pleased, that, you know, we have the house and the family and the jobs and everything else, even when we as a human being feel like actually we should be content with our lot, why not strive for more? And what is it that might be holding us back from achieving more, wouldn't you say? And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to do this podcast.
I think so. I think the only thing I'd say is I think that's particularly true for you because you've done very well in your life at sort of functioning and putting all the pieces together. It's just that in sort of recent years you've realised you want more than that.
And I don't feel that happy sometimes. Yeah.
I think weirdly, conversely, I end up being generally, I'd say, quite cheerful and maybe sort of the more cheerful, convivial sort of person, but actually I've been more debilitated by my issues than you have. So maybe I've had an even stronger sense of needing to do something about it.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think, overall, we both have that sense of what's the point in letting these issues kind of fester and not dealing with them?
I want more from life.
Of course.
And to be fair, I'll put kudos to you because it's you that has, as you've said, you've kind of striven for self-betterment yourself, but also encouraged me to think beyond that. I can, on a piece of paper, I look like I'm successful. But actually, how do I feel about my life and how do I feel about the day-to-day? It's just different.
Yeah, although this may be a function of the thing we're going to talk about today, which is my overthinking.
That's very true, very true. So you're saying that we're actually here because you've overthought and we should be ignoring your overthinking about... Let's backtrack just a little bit. If you haven't listened to previous episodes, please do indulge away and listen to them. But we have been taking it in turns to identify the root convictions that were built ultimately when we're kids. I mean, let's face it, root convictions tend to come from childhoods. And then they in turn drive behaviours on a day-to-day basis which stop us from really being ourselves. And so today, as Maz has given a teaser already, we are going to be exploring Maz's behaviour of overthinking, which I think comes mainly from the not feeling safe. And it sounds quite straightforward. Well, of course, if somebody doesn't feel safe, they're going to overthink everything. But is it that black and white? Do you think we could start there?
I think part of it actually is. I think a lot of the reason I overthink, and I suppose I should cast the net a little bit wider than that. It's not just overthinking; it's over-analysing, putting too much energy into that side of my brain, if you like, and sometimes not knowing when to just stop and leave things be. I think a lot of that comes from not feeling safe, and I mean, going back to stuff I've said before, not necessarily as a kid being given much feedback or information when things did go wrong. So I think a big thing for me, particularly with the safety, is living in a country in Iraq where, I mean, it was at war, I think, every year but one that I lived there.
That's amazing.
There was that 1 year when nothing was going on. So I think having that in the background meant that although within my home I felt safe, I think outside of that everything felt I don't know, everything felt sort of laced with an element of danger or unpredictability. And then consequently moving over here and that all being, I mean, I didn't know at the age of, I think, 11, 12 when we moved over here, I didn't actually know that we were moving over to the UK permanently. So even that became, when it dawned on me that that's what was happening, even that made things feel more unpredictable. And I think it just amplified my natural inclination to think and my natural curiosity as well. I think that plays a big role. I'm interested in lots and lots of different things. I always want to know more about things because I love learning.
You're a human encyclopedia. And like I've referenced it before, you're my Mr. Google. I mean, you know bloody everything. I don't know how you do it.
But it's just something I love doing. I mean, I love learning about everything, really. I mean, that's the way I was as a child, and I was the very cool kid reading the encyclopedias and knowing all the facts about the planets and all that sort of stuff.
I know all my flags. I know all the stars.
I know every country on a map. Yeah, no, I did all of that, and I was quite pleased with myself. And
you still are.
Yeah, of course I am. Useful for pub quizzes.
True.
But the thing is, I think was naturally in me, and I think that's something I inherited probably from my mother. She was very interested in a wide range of topics. So
naturally curious, is a building block for the overthinking, you think?
Yes, I think if you have that natural curiosity and you're lucky enough to have been able to, I suppose, funnel that into something productive or something interesting or positive, then you're probably all set. But I never had that.
But I wonder, so you were curious as a child, you were learning from the books and you were feeding that, but also were you seeing other people being overthinkers? For fair enough, you've got the curiosity from your mum, she liked reading, she liked learning. I remember her horror when she realised I was really shit at geography and couldn't tell her where a particular country was in the world.
She was disgusted.
My belligerence was, I'm not going to be piloting the plane, am I? So why do I need to know? Did not go down well.
She gave you a good proper dog eye.
She loved to learn all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So obviously you've got the curiosity from her, but were you... were there overthinkers in your family? And I'm asking a question kind of knowing about your grandmother being a tiny bit neurotic and possibly overthinking certain things, like taking her bottle of Dettol everywhere she went. That for me, that's a trait of overthinking. You're overthinking the amount of germs that might be there. Yes, somebody might just say, that she was anxious about her health or whatever. But actually she's overthinking the potential of the environment being in a negative way.
There's and this is where from my mother's side we turn to my father's side, and that's where a lot of the sorry Dad if you're listening, a lot of the more neurotic tendencies, shall we say, live on. Yes, there's a big thread of hypochondria, I suppose, anxiety too to some extent, that runs from my grandmother to my dad, and then some of that passed on to me. And that was very noticeable. I mean, I picked up on that a lot when I was a kid. I happened to be, for example, there was a period of time when I was 3-4 years old when I was ill a lot. I mean, I had mostly tonsillitis all the time. I was ill for about a year non-stop. And going backwards and forwards to doctors. And so I had a lot of experience of I had the feeling that... if there was something wrong, if you were ill, that it had to be seized upon. You couldn't just be ill and ride it out and it would be okay. It had to be treated. It had to be dealt with. It was all very dramatic, and things would suddenly kick into gear. So I think...
But you didn't like the attention, did you? It wasn't like you loved the attention and so you saw the benefit of overthinking.
I was completely fine with the idea of just letting things run their course, and
right.
But that was the way that people around me reacted. I mean, I remember once, it's a common theme, similar to you really. I remember burning my hand at once when I was, I don't know, about 5 or 6. on a heater in our living room. And it just so happened that my dad's family were all over there for some occasion or other. And you've never seen so many sedentary people jump out of their chairs sort of all at once. And, one person wanted the Dettol, one person wanted plasters, another one was getting a cold compress. And it's just this kind of cacophony and just the panic everywhere. And I really vividly remember thinking, it's fine, it hurts, but I'm okay. Why is all this happening? And I think, that may have been something that I could have left in childhood had other things subsequently not happened, like moving over to the UK and the trauma of all of that. So I think it eventually found its way back into my system and it came out as overthinking. So I think that, going back to what we were saying, that plus the curiosity meant that
and a brain that's capable.
I've never been able to switch my brain off. No. And the problem is I quite like my brain being busy too.
Yeah.
So it's not as if I could just say, well, the answer is just switch that side of your head off and move on. I kind of feel more alive when I'm engaging that side of my head, when I'm able to learn new things. It's just that in that same sort of part of my head resides all this sort of negative influence too.
Yeah, it must be easy. So you've got natural curiosity and you love your brain being busy. You're also an intelligent guy. You've got those three things that are plus points, but it means that you fall into the trap of overthinking when it doesn't serve a purpose and it doesn't help as much. And then that's where things like, which you've referenced already, so anxiety, hypochondria, those things can come out as something that aren't you. No. And actually, if you took a step back, you wouldn't be concerned about things that fall under the hypochondria bracket. But the problem is you can't switch your brain off from overthinking, and the overthinking with plus the intelligence. So the theoretical possibility of this and what's happened in that in terms of previous examples gives you that validation that the overthinking is necessary in a way. But also the overthinking, does it, as well as anxiety, is there not a level also of procrastination, or because you overthink so much that something doesn't get done? I'm asking you sincerely because I can't think. I know that you might be a bit slow. I get hasty. I go the other way.
Yeah.
I just want to get things done and it's like, my goodness. But I don't know whether or not you not getting things done as quickly is because you're procrastinating, or actually is you being normal, for want of the better word, and me actually being hasty.
No, I think we're probably either ends of the spectrum. I think you will sometimes do things a little too quickly for your own good just because you want to get things done. And I'm the opposite. I will think about something if I'm able to, if I have the luxury of being able to sort of think about something at length. I will think about it and look at all the parameters. I mean, it could be something as simple as I recently wanted to buy a new guitar because I'm getting back into playing the guitar. I must have thought about it and I mean literally months and months and months.
When you say you've thought about it, how many minutes in a day do you think?
Oh, I don't know about that, but when I thought about it, I mean, it would be daily to some extent. When I have the time, I mean, a lot of the time it will be when I'm about to go to bed or first thing in the morning or something. The other problem is that I'm able to do whatever it is I have to do in the day and have that running in the background.
Yeah, see, I can't do that.
Yeah, I'll have two or three things going on at once.
One thing, one other.
But I can do research upon research upon research and basically never come to...
Because it starts off as enjoyable. You want to do the research, you're curious, you want to look at all the different types. Whereas if I wanted to buy a guitar, I'd be like, okay, what are the best reviews? What's my price bracket? That sounds good enough, I'll buy it. And I probably would have made a decision within a day and then buy it the next day or within a week. Whereas you're saying, actually, it plays out because it starts being enjoyable. You're curious, you want to make the best decision, but also you're enjoying listening and reading and everything else about it. And then there must come a point where it just, actually, I'm now in the overthinking. It's becoming months and I can't get out from overthinking what's right, what's wrong, what do I really need.
And it might seem, I mean, that's a really trivial example, but actually I'd say that Yeah, I think the holding back that I discussed previously really does affect me, but I'd say this affects me more. I think the overthinking and the overanalyzing really does, particularly when I was a bit younger, had major ramifications on all sorts of things. I mean, from having having the life that I wanted to sort of not having as many friends as I'd have liked, to what jobs I had. I mean, all sorts of things. I ended up thinking, getting myself completely stuck as to what I thought I should be doing versus what I wanted to do. And it just became this kind of battle of two different sides. And I've never been very good at just giving myself a time limit and saying, okay, if you haven't sorted it out by such and such a time, move on to something else. It just keeps going. And I think that's where, obviously, I do suffer from health anxiety. I mean, that has been really hard for me to deal with over the years, because I suppose part of it stems from certainly not feeling safe, but also feeling like I have to have all of the answers. You know, I need to be responsible for knowing what's happening when I need to be aware of something, when I don't. And I only have me as that frame of reference. I find it difficult because of my history to completely trust other people. I trust people 99% of the time, but when it comes to something really important, I find it hard to completely let go of that.
But I think you've also, which is fair enough, and that plays out 100%. But there'll be times when you'll say, oh, I'm not sure about this, or I'm concerned about that. And I'll say, oh, come on, it's never going to be a problem. Haven't you seen X, Y, Z? Or here's my proof that it's okay. And actually, because you've been curious in the past and because you've read up loads of stuff, and I'm not just talking about Dr. Google, I'm just saying in general, you know quite a lot of stuff, you are able to say to me, yeah, but actually, you've made that on a false assumption. You've based your decision on something that's not fact. Here's the fact. And so actually the overthinking of in the past has played into your overthinking now, where you have your proof not to trust people 100%.
Because and I suppose I should expand on that a bit. It's probably not strictly a lack of trust. It is me feeling, and this stems from childhood, that I have to know everything. I have to have all the answers because I can't rely on other people to necessarily have the answers that I'm looking for. So it could be a health anxiety thing, or it could be all sorts of things. But because of various things that have happened over the years, I mean, obviously being a kid and being bullied and all that sort of stuff doesn't help either. I sort of feel that I've had to be very self-reliant in that way. But really, if you end up being so self-reliant that you shut out other people's advice to some extent, or kind of, I don't know, take it with a pinch of salt, then it feels very sort of limited and quite enclosed, and I go round and round in circles. I mean, I think it's better than it was, and I'm able to break out of it for the most part. But there are times, particularly when it's stressful, when I go back into that sort of habitual.
Which doesn't help that when I'm stressed, I get more hasty and want to get stuff done quicker. And so we become at odds.
It could be anything. I mean, you know, for example, I think you've referenced before, when our children were born 3 months early, that whole experience of kind of going to hospital, then being in hospital for 3 months, all of that, I think, for example, re-triggered a lot of that stuff again. And I felt completely powerless. I didn't know what to do. I was used to at least being able to anticipate what should be done, or having some of the answers, but I didn't know what to do with any of that. And I think because I grew up in an environment where emotions weren't particularly encouraged, sometimes that emotion comes out as anxiety, a bit like yours does with the anger, maybe. Yeah. And so that really triggered it, and it just sent my head into overdrive.
It was hugely traumatic.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's It's a really tricky one to talk about because I think sometimes I don't even recognise that I'm doing it until it's too late, which is why I mentioned earlier, like the guitar, the really trivial example. It even extends to things like that, which should be enjoyable. It should be a good thing.
When do you recognise that you're in the overthinking stage? Or is it a retrospective, oh my goodness, that's taken me months? Or do you never recognise it because you're so used to overthinking that it's not necessarily an issue? I don't know.
No, I'm pretty, which is a good thing. I'm pretty self-aware. I think the vast majority of the time, maybe not immediately, but I'm aware that I'm thinking about something too much. But I sometimes find it really difficult to stop. I find it really hard because, again, it feels like that's what I should be doing. You know, I going back to a previous episode, actually, I cultivated this role I thought I should have of being the sort of sensible, thinking, not feeling sort of person. And it really kind of plays into that role, and it becomes this sort of tug of war between, but I'd actually like to relax a bit. I'd like to enjoy these things. I'd like to not overthink, versus this sort of side of me that thinks, oh, actually, that's not what you should be doing. You should be looking at things in a different way and being much more logical, because that's all I ever knew. That's the way you should be. So it goes back to that again, that sort of who am I and when am I allowed to just be?
How do you continue being that curious, interested in the world person and whilst combating that need to feel safe? Because not necessarily being in control. It is more about safe than control. But I'm only using the word control because you used it about the girls being born early. But the thing with, if you think through every single thing, then you might be able to come up with the right answer, or you might be able to know that the decision is the right one. But sometimes you can just end up going round and round and round in circles. And how do you break that cyclical thing?
Because that's, and I can't say for sure whether this is true or not, but I felt very strongly growing up that that's the only thing that was valued, was my ability to think.
Right.
And so, I mean, and it was in a very real sense when I was in Iraq, because it was all about academic achievement.
Yeah, they love their kids being academic.
Yeah. Well, you kind of had to be, because if the there's no middle ground really. Either you're academic, at least this was true when I was a kid, academic, and you went on to a good job and you had a comfortable life, or you didn't and you struggled, and there was no one to kind of pick you up, no sort of social security or anything like that. You were in trouble. So I think it was very much all around me, and it was something that I could do. I mean, I can think, but it was really overstretched, and that natural can't say the word, curiosity mixed with that need to excel academically, and the praise that I got for it meant that that's just the path I took. I mean, to the point where when we moved over to the UK, I kept doing it. So even
and we didn't need you to do that in the UK.
No, but even though the environment had changed and that sort of demand on me academically, frankly, lowered quite a bit. I mean, I was, when I went to school in the UK, in sort of year 7, I think it was. I was learning stuff that I would have done 3 years previously, something like that. But even then, I kept pushing myself, and I spent, and I'm not exaggerating, on a Sunday, for example, I would have spent sometimes 6-7 hours doing homework, possibly more.
I don't think I was given that much homework to do.
Neither was I.
Because you were overthinking it, or you were going over and above? Yeah, write a 1,000-word story. I'm going to write a 5,000-word story. No.
But that was the problem. A lot of the time there wasn't a limit. So you'd be told, and this is probably a bit when I was a bit older, maybe towards GCSEs, so I'm talking 15, 16, you'd be told to write an essay or something, and most people would have written 1,000 words, whatever.
As little as they could get away with.
Exactly, but that was just the expectation. Everyone kind of knew it. I didn't have that in me. I didn't know what the limit was, so I just kept going. And sometimes I'd be doing literally 10 times the amount.
God, I bet your teachers loved you when it came to marking.
Well, they may have mentioned it a few times. But I think that the point is that because my life up to that point had been so chaotic, I never really knew what those boundaries were, or when I was okay to just go, I've done enough. That's the lesson I never really learned when I was younger is, okay, now you've done enough, that's good enough. Without necessarily being a perfectionist, it just became a sort of a robotic automatic pilot thing. You just keep going, more stuff sort of spews out of you, and eventually, I don't know, you're knackered, you fall asleep and you have to stop.
That's phenomenal. Yeah, see, I never had that. I've got a strong work ethic in my professional life, but when it came to academic, I did the least that I could get away with if necessary.
Yeah.
And I don't think in any way really I'm an overthinker. I might overthink in the loose term of trying to second guess what somebody else might be thinking, or what behaviour might have happened during the day, or I might overthink just because I really want to do an amazing job in my professional life. It's really important to me that I am considered the best in my field, for example. I might overthink all the different things I need to do for a client so that I do the best job. But that's not really overthinking. When you start overthinking, whether it be linked to health or making a decision for the household or for yourself or whatever, sometimes I just find it irritating. I'm like, come on, let's get on. But at the same time, we as a family and I as an individual benefit from that overthinking, because your overthinking means that actually quite more often than not you will find a better solution than the one I would have quickly gone with, or something that and so I can completely see how it must be difficult to take a step back from being an overthinker in day-to-day life when you have it validated that by doing so you get the best thing possible as an outcome. I'm not talking about the health anxiety or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the really looking at all sides of something before making a decision.
It's the trouble really is that in a way we both do the right kind of things for the family, but it's just sometimes at cost to both of us because we both overdo it. So you're very much a short-term thinker. So
definitely.
What's immediately in front of you, you're very good at dealing with it and just getting on with it. But sometimes things are.
It means I might rush it.
You might rush it, or you kind of feel a bit claustrophobic.
Or it tires me out because I've taken on something I shouldn't have done.
Where for me, I'm the other way. I'm big picture, long-term thinking, but that's endless. Where is your boundary? You don't have a deadline.
But I love it because you're seeing this is what our family could do. This is what you and I could do, Beck. This is. Let's look at our root convictions, Beck.
Yeah, well, exactly. You're all listening because of me.
Yep.
I think it's My difficulty is because I've become that long-term thinker. It's really difficult to be in the moment.
Yeah.
And that's where I truly miss out.
Because you'll say to me, think about the bigger picture. What's the bigger picture? I'm like, I've got no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah,
but what about, obviously I know what he means by having a kind of like a dreamscape of what the world should be and what I'd want to achieve. But I cannot break out of short-term thinking. I find it so bloody hard. And so I can only imagine that, of course, you'd have the same in reverse. But then how do you get stuff done? Or how do you build a feeling of feeling safe without overthinking?
Yeah, I think, and again, I think a lot of that has to do with just feeling, it sounds simplistic, but feeling more and more yourself. I think if you feel connected to who you are and able to show that in as many ways as you kind of want to, as is right for you, I think that, or my hope, is that natural need for safety that I might have might sort of diminish over time, because you're almost feeling, I don't know, that things aren't being blocked off, that there aren't roadblocks in the way, that you're able to things are able to kind of flow quite naturally. And I think with if that were to ever be the case, I think that lifelong need for safety might kind of go into the background a bit, because this is the thing. I'm really not somebody who I love thinking about the big picture. I'm very optimistic. I love thinking about all the possibilities out there. It's just that I've trained my brain to think in much smaller terms, very kind of micro. And it's it's just one of these things where I think over time have to learn the opposite skill, to learn when enough is enough, and to I don't know, to just be more myself, so that and to learn that being me isn't just about thinking. You know, I'm not just the academic, the logical person. There's much more to me.
So is there anything that you're currently doing? Like, obviously one of the things that I'm trying to do is just ask myself, how do I actually feel? You know, so that I'm applying who I am to something rather than just being a to-do person. Do you have anything similar to that you're doing at the moment that can help with your, hang on, that's enough? Have I done enough? Is that not strong enough yet?
It does happen. I think it's probably what I will do now is, if I'm particularly concerned about something, worrying about something, or just, I don't know, thinking about something too much, the best thing I've found for me to do is to just do something completely different. So literally, I mean, a lot of the time when I'm doing this, I'm sitting down or whatever, just to jump up and do something, exercise, or go in and do something. If I'm at home, do something that needs doing around the house or whatever it might be. But just do something. I think something physical actually helps.
But you have to recognise you're in the zone of overthinking at that point.
But I think I often do, as I say. I think it's just that I've often felt trapped and sort of assumed I have to keep going, because that is me.
Yeah.
You know, I convinced myself that that's the way I should be. So even though I recognised it and I could sort of almost look at myself from a distance, I thought, yeah, it's shit that you feel this way and that you recognise it, but you've got to keep going.
Right.
But now I think at that point I'm able to, not always, but I'm able to kind of get up and do something else that breaks me out of it. I probably should do that more, but it does help.
So if you're someone who is an overthinker like Mazmouz, what do you do? Is there something that you've already found that seems to be the thing that actually, as long as you do this, you can break the cycle? Or are you right at the beginning recognising, I'm an overthinker and I think I need to start taking a step back? You know, as we always say, please do share. Please do be the first person to comment and say what you're thinking linked to this post, because we'd love to hear from you. And especially if there's anything that's resonated with you, but maybe you want to pick apart a bit further, maybe something Maz has said something about a behaviour that he's had or an experience that he's had, and you want to know a bit more about it, feel free. Ask us questions and get some more detail from us, because this is about all of us. Anyone who really wants to be everything that they have the potential to be, and to break down those things that hold them back. But I think that's it for today. So again, if you've been listening all the way to now, thank you so much for staying with us. We really appreciate your ears. Do get part of be part of the discussion as much as you can be, and we wish you all the best and look forward to sharing our thoughts with you in future episodes. Take care.
Bye, everyone.